The candy is on sale. The romance memes are over, and it is time for another wonderful day in this glorious country. For StarCraft 2, that's right, it's the World Championship Series Winter Americas Edition. I'm your host, Nathanius, joined by Zombie Grub as we move into the messier, the sloppier half of the WCS broadcast. We getting down and dirty with those Americas region games.
This is going to be a really weird mix of players. So many that we don't still truly know, even after making it out of the round of 32 group, and then some we know are just kind of weird players to begin with. So.
Yeah, weird. That's the word to use. Of course, this is the WCS. We are in the second group stage. For all y'all who are unfamiliar with the rules, we had a round of 32 that a bunch of players attempted to qualify in through qualifiers, a lot of qualifiers, etc. And then we went through our round of 32, as I just said. And now we are in the round of 16, Group B for Bananas, which is what everybody might be going by the time this group is over. Of course, they'll be seeded into a round-robin bracket for the top 8, and then the top 6 of that round-robin will move on to a final bracket where they will play for their share of how much money, Zombie Grub?
60,000.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. $60,000 on the line here in WCS Winter for each region. $60,000 for Europe, $60,000 for Americas. And that means a whole lot of moolah, I think, in dead last place. If you qualify and you just bomb out terribly, it's like $675. So you still, that's a pretty fair consolation prize for showing up and losing immediately.
That was for the round of 32. So now if you do it for the round of 16, it's more.
Yeah, I think Fear Dragon said round of 16 is like $975.
Yeah.
So you made $300 by getting to this stage, but you're getting even closer and closer to that wonderful top prize. Of course, we do have some great games for you coming up. As Zombie Grub said, it is a good mix of players from all over the world. Americas. We've got MaSa going up against Firefly, Canada versus China, and then we've got Coffee versus Probe. That's China versus Australia here in Americas. Group B. We'll be starting things off with that Terran versus Protoss. Your favorite matchup, right, Zombie Grub?
Terran vs. Protoss?
Yeah.
Yes. The superior matchup, even the TvZ, which has historically been the best matchup, but not anymore.
No.
TvP is the best now.
Rewriting the books.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, what do you love so much about TvP as we get ready for this match?
I like how the Terrans proxy.
There's a kind of like an art to it, right?
Yes.
It's like when you go to the flea market and you're like, well, I don't really know that this chair is that nice, but it's got character to it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it worth all the termites inside of it. All right, the lobby is ready. We are good to go. I believe there was a caster that was just trying to join the lobby, but otherwise, we'll be starting this in just a moment. Kicking it off on Port Alexander. And MaSa is the type of player to do one of those proxies, right?
Yes, he is. That's why I brought it up. I know we saw the European section, the round of 32, maybe not so much on the proxy, surprisingly, but we also barely had any Terrans.
Hero Marine's probably like, my MMR is too high, it's not worth it to proxy you, to show my strategies.
That's probably exactly what he says.
Yeah.
All the time on stream.
You don't deserve to see my bits.
MaSa has, it feels like MaSa, whenever he comes back into StarCraft, starts playing, gets into a tournament, what have you, someone tells him what the meta is, and he's like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And he just does it.
Yep. That was, when he qualified for WESG Canada, the conversation was just so weird. He's like, what's good? And like, he's like, yeah, people told me that battle cruisers are good now. And then he's like, it's the first time I've ever built battle cruisers in StarCraft was I beat Scarlet in that match with a mass BC build. He's just like, yep, I just kind of ask people, they tell me, and then I do it, and then I win.
That's the most impressive thing, is that he does it with a very little, like, knowledge of it. Or...
His superpower is that he's just chill, right?
Yeah, and that chillness actually gives him more power. The relaxation, man, really kicks in for him, which is good because Firefly, we saw him capable, anyways, of doing some aggressive maneuvers, but then we have pause.
I'd just like to point out that MaSa's way of getting more powerful by just being more relaxed totally counteracts Fear Dragon's demand that you be very angry and screaming for 3 episodes of filler in order to increase your power level, all right? Sometimes you just gotta lay back and relax. And it looks like...
Yeah, we're gonna...
Okay, okay. So there's just a slight mistake. We started this one on the Central server. Firefly is playing from China, so US Central is like, no, goodness.
And I think MaSa might even be West West
Yeah.
Coast, so that was just a mistake.
Yep.
It's also a default server.
For those who wonder, since there are so many servers for Americas, the default, if two players don't agree to play on a different server, the default is US West. So that's where the majority of the games are going to be played unless the players agree, which usually only happens if they are both outside of North America. So
Right. Yeah. So, gotta get it restarted. It's a little annoying because you have to actually completely quit out of a lobby and then change it. Make it. It's me a little bit process.
But we'll get back into it in just a moment's time. For those of you guys watching, I'd just like to remind all of you, you can connect your war chest to your Twitch account and you can unlock stuff just by watching. It has been a little bit buggy today. I've been able to claim some XP though. Please bear with us. Check out that cool barracks. Isn't it nice? Isn't it cool? Isn't it fresh? When you proxy in your opponent's base, you don't want to just proxy. You want to proxy with a message of, I've got a cool thing that you don't. Probably because they're not playing Terran. But regardless, still pretty cool. With that being said, we do have the lobby. Everybody's ready to go. And we'll be jumping on in just a moment's time.
I don't think we have the player in the slot, so.
Oh, the player's not in the slot. It's okay. We'll figure it out, all right? Get it. It's not him. No, yeah, wait. This guy just coming from general chat? Like,
yeah, right? He's a co-caster.
that could be tough. Well, the character's name had B in it, but like, I don't know. Could be Australian then.
Oh, I was thinking like Firefly's a bug, a bee's a bug.
Oh, when I think of B, I just think of Libby B, and I just think of Australia.
Or that, yeah.
Her B logo thing, which is like half cute and half terrifying. It's weirdly chipper.
Is it?
I'm just saying.
I don't.
It's weirdly chipper, you know.
Well, that
it's like one of those plushies out of like a horror movie when it's like, oh yeah, the daughter's she's just playing with her doll, and the doll's like this freakishly like wide grinning, you know. It's like, nah.
I actually can't think of a plushie that was like naturally gross and like creepy, but it became creepy once it like smiled or moved.
You never got to see Child's Play growing up? No.
Well, Chucky before he like gets his like overalls torn and
No,
like,
he is totally creepy before he turns into a undead, redead, whatever word you would use to describe that.
Reanimate? I don't actually know. I don't know.
That's how terrifying it is.
But I do agree that it was pretty scary. I mean, anyone who collects dolls is always scary too.
Yeah. Possessed maybe.
Yeah. All right, it's begun and everything is now correct. Yay.
Yes.
Alexander.
Life is good. We are loaded in to Port Alexander to kick off our first match here for the Americas Group B of WCS winter round of 16. In the bottom right, we have the blue Protoss player. He is Firefly.
In the top left, as the red Terran, he is MaSa.
I can't believe MaSa would do such an insane, crazy, absurd, ridiculous, flabbergasting, phantasmagoric, unpredictable, gut-punching build. Zombie Grip. He built his barracks inside of his main base. Do you think he's sick?
Shocking.
Yeah, maybe he's got the flu.
Maybe he's sick in the brain, man.
Yeah. I can't fathom why MaSa would build his barracks inside of his main base against Protoss. Usually, even if he doesn't want to like aggressively proxy, he still builds it halfway in the other direction of the map.
Right.
Like he would build in the bottom left or top right corner, even though it's not actually closer to the opponent's base by like a real amount, just so that the Protoss player gets all worked up over it. But this says to me that MaSa's just thinking about doing the tank push then, because he'd want to have his barracks at home for that.
Right, yeah. I mean, we could still see maybe a proxy starport, but I'm thinking more just like, okay, tank push it is on 2 base. And Firefly should know that. Unfortunately, Firefly doesn't get much practice outside of the Chinese server. A lot of his previous results are versus Chinese players. Where MaSa and him have never played. I doubt they've been on ladder. I don't even know if Firefly knows much about MaSa other than like he's got a decent amount of prize winnings.
Yep.
But it's PvT, and I think in this case you are going to be playing to the matchup, not necessarily to MaSa. MaSa's just going to do what every other Terran's doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the group is Protoss and Terran, right? So that's not, I don't think, too much of a stretch. Expansion's about to finish up for Firefly, and it's going to be Twilight to follow. Likely to go for that quick, cheap blink upgrade. And I do wonder if MaSa will consider trying to play a long game versus Protoss here, despite disparaging comments about doing that. Okay, yeah.
Wow.
And the reason why I just kind of telepathically knew all of that was I figure with the latency difference as well, because Firefly playing from China, even to US West, is still going to be rough. The latency is pretty bad coming out of there, especially to foreign servers. So I wonder that MaSa's like, you know what, I could probably just beat him in a head-to-head macro game because I'm going to be able to micro better than he will.
Well, we might not be wrong. We haven't really gotten to see Firefly's long-term game plan, his macro, his micro when it comes to those bigger armies, because, you know, we had the PvP with Haas and PvP, and then just otherwise, he barely made out of his group. So we're going to get to see that today as MaSa with the 3rd CC setting the tone for the matchup. Soon enough, Firefly will have an ability to read that, but right now he's actually completely in the dark, and he should be expecting a 2-base tank pushes because that's what's so usual. So he will be the one that's caught off guard. Maybe he doesn't get as greedy as he should, thinking that an attack's on the way, and that's actually kind of scary for him. He's just going to completely be blindsided by how much stuff, how much bio is going to be hitting him at a later time.
Yeah, and that seems like a very MaSa way to play the game. By the way, he's sporting the cool, he's using the Special Forces skins on his units. He doesn't have any building skins on it, doesn't look like, but look at that siege tank. If only that tank was as good as the tank that it looks like from the campaign. The siege breakers.
I was going to say, the
Rainer's siege breakers do like 100 damage, it's nuts.
And
They
they're also like,
don't really do friendly fire either.
they're like much bigger than this tank as well.
Yeah.
They don't exactly look like them. They were so good. Okay, we have the robotics bay on the way. Again, Firefly, no idea exactly what's happening with MaSa, and the Observer will eventually see the 3rd CC. By then, MaSa will have all the defense set up, but now it's up to MaSa to scout, do a little scouting himself, see that it is robotics bay tech.
It's interesting, right, the setup, because it's, as you were talking about, the robotics bay, +1 attack and blink leads me to believe that he's going to transition straight into Colossi on 2 bases, and this 3rd is very late, honestly. It feels really late. Like, Protoss players, when they do fast 3rds, they go real fast lately.
Yeah.
And I think the advantage that people talk about that Protoss gets, like, he's ahead on workers, but that 3rd Nexus is not going to be as early as you normally get it. So I think the 3rd Command Center is going to get him even on workers pretty quickly, which is very good for the Terran.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're expecting any type of aggression off of 2 bases, whether it's truly committed or not, then you want to, you know, there are a lot of apprehensive Protoss who will either delay their 3rd Nexus or put their point into something else.
They expect that push that we were talking about. Because at the highest level in Korea, that's pretty much all the matchup is right now, is just 2 base tank pushes or die trying.
Yeah. And, you know, that Observer came in so late, there really wasn't a possible way for him to make up for this. I mean, maybe he puts more chronos into probes now, but this is something where he can't really deny the 3rd base for much longer. I'm actually kind of surprised MaSa hasn't taken it yet. He's just producing SCVs off of it. He has gotten very little scouting himself, so it's kind of similar scenarios for both players. He should, I feel like Colossus really have come back, that you should definitely be on guard against them. You have to scan to get a drop in at some point to see exactly if it's mass charge lots or if it's Colossus. But MaSa is currently just, I mean, doing his thing, trying to keep up with the macro.
And since he doesn't have stim yet, and it's like equal ground, he just kind of gets bullied a little bit there. I think the tank almost doing a good job pushing away. That the tanks are super important in this phase of the game. MaSa's like, I'm just going to take my 3rd right now, and he goes straight there, so he's got moving the command center immediately. And with that SCV production I was talking about, he's not too far behind in the worker count, which is really, really nice for him. I also think it's a huge plus for MaSa that Firefly has not opted for the double forge early on. He got his +1 attack. Now he's getting armor and adding the 2nd forge. But MaSa has an opportunity here to catch up and hopefully not fall too far behind. That's one of the big areas where Terran players flub a little bit. He's building his 2nd factory pretty early here as well. I guess he's thinking maybe a lot of Widow Mines to deal with potential Zealots.
Well, that's, I mean, it's not an incorrect call. Zealots are still a big part of the Protoss army, but I don't know if I actually like this. Firefly has been doing nothing wrong really in this game. His macro's been well set up. He did get a later 3rd Nexus than maybe he really could have, but he's still going into double forge eventually, where we saw some Protosses of round of 32 actually hold off entirely on that. So he's going to have these good upgrades. He sees what the army looks like. I mean, it's still the same type of army. If he had seen like 7 tanks, then that can tell you something different, but it is just the bio. He sees no Vikings, but would you really do that in the first place? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a clash of armies in like a minute here, but I feel like MaSa's army isn't set up to deal with the Colossus.
It's been a very passive game so far. I mean, he could end up turning those factories into building Thors at some point. Dun, dun, dun.
It's true.
We've seen it. It's been tried a good few times. Thors are very interesting units to watch fight. Because sometimes they look ridiculously good, and well, the rest of the time they just look like, why is this unit in the game?
Yeah. So we have 3 Colossus and Immortal. Okay. And we have Storm on the way. We do have drops coming in from the south side, which might barely be scouted by these pylons. But yeah, that's the first site that MaSa has on the army, I believe.
Observer is right on top of him, too. So Firefly sees everything here, and he's like, you know what? I could probably just kill this. Just kill you. There's the scan. Oh, I like that snap reaction to grab the tanks as well. He's like, I don't want to leave those behind. There's the drop in the main. Stalkers are there, but the medevacs are going to be able to unload. That's really important. Look at that zealot working.
It's a lot of zealots. The medevacs will barely be able to escape. Nope.
Oh!
That one shot down. And that does not go so well. In fact, he just...
he's like, you know what? You can have the other one.
Yeah.
That's your reward.
Yeah, he just...
It's actually a 2 for deal.
This is not going so hot for MaSa. His response to being pushed back is just go for a 4th base. He is going into Drilling Claws, Widow Mines. I'm really quite worried about that. Obviously, they'll take care of the charge lots. And if they get splashed in any of the part of the army, they're good.
Colossi are good against them, but I don't know. I like the mines. I like Drilling Claws versus Protoss a lot.
Sure. Wait, did he? Oh, they did finish. Okay, that was crazy. It's like Widow Mines aren't bad, and Drilling Claws is a very useful upgrade. You're going to get a lot of situations where the Protoss player didn't expect to have to, compensate for that, so they're going to lose their observers, and the Widow Mines are going to get second shots. I'm just worried that because he's so invested into this idea with the expansion that we're not going to see anything else. The more powerful Liberators, the Ghost being added in eventually.
Okay, yeah, that's fair, and I agree. Well, he starts 2 starports now, but yeah, it's very late, relatively speaking. These double drops are going to go to the 3rd. And the big army has made its way towards the natural, and I think what you want to do is just try and siege those mines in between the bases, and this allows you to kind of push up towards that main. The siege tank tries to help zone away. Don't fight the Colossus if you can help it, though.
Firefly is forced to split a little bit, but his Nexus isn't under fire, so the split works out. He takes care of the drop. He has Storm, he has Colossus. He finds the tanks pretty much alone, but that's because the drop goes in the main base where it can start target firing really important tech. That pylon.
Recall instantly to make sure that this does as little damage as possible.
Wow.
It's going to kill a Colossus. There's a Storm and trying to get out.
No, the blink's so awkward. He was in his own SimCity. Didn't really get effective there. There is a drop. Yeah, a couple Widow Mines over here. Not doing too much damage, though. And it's more important that MaSa is able to save any of these medevacs, which I think he'll be able to do. The army's so far away. Even has one tucked into the corner for a drop later on, but I'm pretty sad about MaSa not being able to get this forge. It's like he killed every pylon.
Yeah, killing the forge would have been
that last one.
Cash. Because here's the problem. We've got +2 armor done, +3 attacks going to be done soon. MaSa's only on 1-1. He's just started his level 2 upgrades, and that's a problem. I think the mines help mitigate it a little bit because the zealots shouldn't be the determining factor, but this is going to be really rough. Counterattack coming in from Firefly over to that 3rd base of MaSa, smacking everything down. The SCVs getting roasted and toasted here by these Colossi laser beams. 25 SCVs dead in the blink of an eye.
With his drop going back into 3rd base, his army was moving across the map, which is why he wasn't back at home to defend, so it's hitting the natural now, but the upgrades have finished. We have 3-2 against only 1-1. 2-2 is so far away that more likely Firefly's going to be able to snipe it when he enters into the main base, actually in the natural. There we go. All the SCVs are going to go down. This is turning into a base trade for sure, but one that MaSa is down in workers, only even an army supply, and that's not even considering that he actually is going to have trouble against the Colossus themselves. We have Liberators on the way finally, but they're going to be a little bit late. Firefly should be able to crack the production.
A little bit late. All right, Zombie Grub. I concede. I think if he'd gone faster range, Liberators would have been maybe a bit better than the Drilling Claws versus the Colossi.
Well, I mean, I wasn't trying to win, but I knew I would. No, it is one of those things, though. Like, he started to build Vikings, he started to build Liberators, but it was all a little bit late. The Colossus ended up being the power move that we see sometimes in Protoss, right? They're like, oh, the hell with defending against these drops, let's just push, because they don't have any Vikings or Liberators, and this is what happens.
MaSa's still doing what any NA Terran does best, and that's make this game as ugly and disgusting as possible as far as the base trade thing goes. Everybody in chat's like, what buildings are floated? What production does he have? Are there gateways at that top base? What's going on here? Can he actually warp anything in?
I mean, Firefly, I thought for sure was going to break the production because the Liberators weren't out, but he didn't really push the issue. He just returns home. He's going to be able to save 2 bases. A lot of his tech still survived. GG is called.
I'd just like to point out that MaSa's engineering bays were destroyed in the natural, so he never even got 2-2.
Yeah.
It was 1-1 versus 3-2, which you don't win that, by the way. Your bio units are useless in that situation.
It's pretty nasty. Firefly played the better macro game. Like, well, he did everything that Protoss is supposed to do, right? Like, he was very cautious about the tank pushes. Then once he realized it weren't coming, he went into that double forge. And I want to say MaSa was a little bit more at fault there for pushing the mid-game stance maybe too long.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Terran players don't take fast third command centers and say, let's just play with all our tier 3 units. Because the Terran player's tier 3 unit is their tier 1 unit. And then, well, you have a hard time once there's both Colossi and Storm on the map with better upgrades than all of your units. So that's going to be on MaSa. I hope to see him proxy next game or go for a 2-base tank push because that's what you do.
I feel like, you know, those Widow Mines can really be tricky. If he had gotten a siege up point, right, like just like you come to me type deal with a concave of Widow Mines, that's when Firefly starts making the mistakes. But when you're kind of dependent on those positional units, and Widow Mines technically count, they have to actually situate and burrow.
Yep.
Games like that are, well, that's why Firefly was able to run around, take the victory, not get popped off by surprise Widow Mines, and that is going to be the first game in the Protoss' favor. Already a bit of a, you know, weird result. We do expect MaSa to win against players we don't necessarily recognize, but Firefly showed us that he has PvT on a, you know, very standard macro level, quite good.
I like this group because there's the 2 Chinese players that we don't know as much about as the other players. You know, MaSa's been around. He's been playing in WCS, been playing in American tournaments, especially forever. Like he's a household name at this point. If you regularly watch StarCraft, you should know who MaSa is. Probe to a slightly lesser degree. He does go out to all the big tournaments. He does compete. He's a super friendly guy. He's the type of person that's like, I know Probe. We get breakfast almost every DreamHack. Like it's just normal at this point. He's competing all the time. Maybe not as known as MaSa, I would still say, in like the WCS-ish circuit, but still in my mind like a strong favorite in this group, especially since he's staying in the United States right now. So he's gonna have the really good connection to the US server that we're playing on. But Firefly and Coffee are like the 2 question marks because we came in, we didn't really know. Coffee played super well in round of 32. I was really impressed, and I think here would be a really cool result if one of these Chinese players was able to upset and get out of this group.
Well, that's what I predicted, actually. Talking about it yesterday with Fear Dragon, I made this my wow, she's bonkers call, where I was like, I think that anyone can get through and anyone can fall down.
I don't think you're bonkers, Zombie Grub.
Oh, thank you. And I'm getting rewarded here.
It would fit with Group B, though.
B for bonkers.
B for bonkers.
Exactly. On the bottom right, down 1, it is the blue Terran MaSa.
And he faces off against the red Protoss in the top left, hailing from China. He's Firefly. Team P1. P1, P1, P1.
Yep, you just say it more often, it gets more hype.
Sounds like a racing team, you know?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
I imagine Firefly showing up to like the offline bracket finals if he makes it there on like one of those super baller motorcycles. You know what I mean? The ones you gotta like lean forward on.
I was trying to like think of a brand name, but I couldn't. But I agree with you.
Dude makes a sick power slide in front on his Ducati. Like,
yeah, there we go.
Let's roll. Let's go.
The extent of my knowledge of motorcycles is that the cooler ones are where you have to lean forward. that's about.
The fast ones, the crotch rockets or whatever they're called.
That's exactly what they're called. Oh, God.
Nexus on the way. Well, now, if anybody knows Firefly, make sure you tell him that that's how he has to roll up to WCS if he makes it far enough.
This is odd.
Expectations have been set. It's a Marine first.
Well, it's also a second supply depot. I guess he really wants to keep the probe in the main base. This is like an FU supply depot.
Where's the other depot that's stalled, though? Or is it just the interface that shows the one unfinished depot twice?
I think it might be a bug, yeah, on the interface.
Yeah, maybe.
Looks like we're going crazy. Yeah, that's
No, yeah, they both take us to the same one. Okay, well, that's fine.
yeah. To anyone like wondering like why that's a weird thing, I suppose. Like the 100 minerals does usually go in the command center pretty nicely timed. So to block out the probe is sweet justice, but people don't usually bother doing it.
Back in the day, it was more of a thing, but these days, no, you don't really see it. There's a second barracks in the factory. No fast third command center. And suddenly the world begins to return to its normal revolutions. Zombie Grub, as we head over towards what will likely end up being, maybe it could be Stim, but we've seen plenty of players go for fast combat shields off the second barracks, and a couple of siege tanks before a big old push with SCVs goes down the field.
Yeah. Notably, MaSa putting them in the very far corners of his map. It wouldn't be scouted by an Adept coming up here, and it would hopefully not be scouted by any Oracle patrolling around here, you know, just like a Cyclone or Marines kind of guarding against it. The MaSa did not quite see what the tech was. There was no particularly fast Stargate, I guess. The Reaper, like, barely got out. Or the SCV, that was. SCV barely got out after the Twilight Council was put down. Or before. Sorry, before. So that's the only question mark for MaSa, but he is trying to keep this a little more hidden. And he's going right into that tank. So what is this tech lab going to start up with?
Combat shields.
Come on.
Combat shield.
There it is. All right, then.
There was, once upon a time, great debate in the olden days of Terran versus Terran, the Pult versus Bomber era from Wings of Liberty, where people would be like, is it better in TvT to open with Stim or combat shields? And back then, the whole meta revolved around the early Marine attack. And if you met with 20 Marines versus 20 Marines in the center of the map, and one player went Stim and one went combat shield Marines would always win, because they have that 20 hit points extra, even if they didn't shoot as fast. And that was how that started. So there are several types of fights where if you don't have medevacs, then going without Stim can oftentimes be much better.
Yeah. There's certainly a reason for doing this. This is a really cool little trick, or whatever you want to call it, for Firefly, who, like, he really wanted to get a scout in, right? And, you know, MaSa was already pushing out, so he was going to give him the scout anyways. But if he wasn't, then he would have gotten a scout with that one stalker. But obviously seeing the Marines, the tank, be kind of more aggressively placed, you are more on guard about the actual tank push. And here it comes now. Only a couple SCVs pulled to help repair the tanks. Not being sieged up here. They're going to try and take on these stalkers. Blink is almost done, though.
I really like that poke, though. That's so important. You don't see it from enough Protoss players, but when you get that extra little bit of damage on there and those SCVs have to start repairing immediately, if they're moving around, they're not actually repairing the whole time. It gets very tricky. Don't want to lose the stalkers, though. And here's that siege. Here we go. It begins.
Yeah, he already lost 3 stalkers that, you know, arguably he should not have. So, and he hasn't really taken down that many Marines, even with buying that much time, or trying to buy a lot of time. Also just kind of push through it all. So this is going to be a tough break, but an Immortal pops out. Some probes, only some probes are pulled. It's actually really nice. Good target fire in the tanks. Actually a little off for a second there, and now the Marines are still alive here.
Pulls back to the shield battery. The Immortal's getting low. 2 stalkers get warped in. Ooh. Almost dies, but blinks back. And is he gonna? He does get the Immortal. And this is it. Just combat shield Marines here. And this is where I think the combat shield is so nice, because the stalkers really only have so far they can run before they have to fight, because this is where the probes are. And the Marines with combat shields just a little bit more durable, able to survive that extra shot from everything. And this attack from MaSa got a lot killed. 34 probes left for Firefly, and he does not have the 3rd Nexus on the way. So you have to ask yourself, what do you do in this situation? Now MaSa's got his Stim coming in, +1 attack, 3rd command center, Widowmine, Starport with reactors already geared up to go.
That was a really nice attack from MaSa. You gotta wonder if Firefly had kept 3 of those stalkers alive, that blink forward would have one-shot the tank, and then the Immortal would have been just able to take out the other one. There's slight differences that could have been a very
every little. I completely agree with you. Every little bit has such a huge impact when you're dealing with low numbers of units like that.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I can't really blame him for trying the poke. He got the 1 tank down to orange, and I'm like, well, if he had been able to get a few more shots off with the stalkers, if Blink was done just a little bit faster, then we get into a world where he kills one of those tanks on the way there, and then it's like, wow, this was the best decision ever.
Yeah, it really was just the micro a little off that killed the low stalkers, because what he did was the right idea. Just lost a bit too many units. So we have a double-pronged attack, but kind of an interesting one. You know, the only medevac he had goes to the top side, which Firefly is just predicting.
His body is so very ready for this.
Those are just Widow Mines, though, and I would say if there was a third Nexus, I'd be more afraid of this attack, but the scan reveals there isn't, so MaSa's going to play rather conservative. There goes the medevac drop. Oh, I don't even think Firefly didn't notice. He just killed it without noticing, and then he
Nice.
a lot later. But good prediction skills. That was all prediction.
How about that observer placement, by the way? He just saw all those units dancing around his base. He's been very aware of where everything is, and he's like, all right, take the north side third. It ain't nothing but a thing, baby.
Colossus once again from Firefly, something that the scan reveals. Maybe Firefly was hoping that would be.
Oh, I think Colossus steps back for a second, like, oh no, did he see me?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think he was hoping that would be a little more of a reveal later on. As I said, it's becoming more and more normal. So even though last game MaSa didn't have a direct counter to it, I'm pretty sure he knew it was a possibility. It was just his choice of how to play that out, and maybe he'll change his mind this game of how to play out the macro game versus Colossus. It's already so much more in his favor that he has that freedom, I suppose.
Well, if he commits too heavily into mines, there's still an opportunity to throw this zombie grub. Don't get too ahead of yourself. We need to get that second starport that you were talking about. I think if the Protoss goes robotics facility or Robo Bay especially, it's never bad to just go straight into that second starport, because Liberators, especially with range, really force the hand of the Protoss. Like, you cannot play Protoss versus Terran against ranged Liberators once there's like more than like 3 or 4 of them. You have to get Stargate. There's nothing that you're gonna do. Just trying to plow through Liberators. It's probably the #1 way Protoss players have been losing games versus Terran for like the entirety of Legacy of the Void.
Even if it was for Vikings, the fact is Firefly is still reeling from the early game, and he won't have as much fodder for those Colossus. You know, not as many Stalkers to pull down Vikings.
Oh my God! And if he loses,
or no Stalkers is another world he's gonna live in. That's all but 3 dying. Then the recall. He won't have to deal with Vikings, but he still has to take care of those Liberators. And now he won't even get the chance to try and poke and snipe them while they're moving across the map. He just has to deal with them as soon as they reach his natural base. In this scenario.
Yeah, the path that those Stalkers ran away was not ideal. Look at that scan. MaSa's like, this is all you got? This is it?
Yeah. Storm is almost done. That's going to be a lot of splash, but what deals with the Liberators? Now there's only 3 Stalkers.
Nothing, because even if he blinks on the Liberators, there's 3 Widow Mines burrowed underneath them. MaSa's got this in the bag.
Yes, he does. Storm being used on the 9 bio units sometimes works out well.
He did stim twice in a row, and now I'm like...
Yeah. It's as if he got storms, but still not enough to throw away the lead.
Liberators still kill everything.
There you go. Firefly having trouble with the tank push, as many Protoss really do, honestly.
MaSa really likes to overstim his units, by the way. Just want to point that out. For a brief moment, we thought he could lose because he was just going to kill all of his own bio. GG. There's a world where MaSa does one more stim, and then the Colossus one-shots everything, and he's like, oh. But
well, yeah.
The Liberators and mines are still there, but I'm like, I've seen MaSa do it before.
There's also a world where all that splash is ready to go on the choke, as opposed to Storm finishing when the Liberators are all sieged
There's
up.
a world where Firefly actually plays Terran, and this game was BC versus BC.
Exactly. So,
infinite parallel universes, guys. But thankfully, we're on Earth 1, right? We're on Earth Prime. Are we, though? We're going to get ready for game number 3. Fun little series so far. Fun little TvP.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see that we're getting... Anyone who makes it in the round of 16 you'd think would have proved themselves, but some of those groups were like, you barely made it through. Like, what are you really going to show us here? And this is the real test a lot of time, the round of 16s and above. And Firefly is showing that he's no slouch. He didn't get lucky getting through here, and he is taking on MaSa. Granted, MaSa not playing very much, but MaSa, whether he plays a lot or a little, he just always dominates these Americas tournaments.
Yep.
If Scarlet and Nee weren't there, I suppose.
Yeah, but I mean, outside of them, he's good. Big Terran representative for North America.
Yeah. For a time, America was also lacking in Terrans. It really was just Korean Terrans. And it was like MaSa. MaSa was actually...
Still kind of is. Still kind of is.
Yeah, it is, but I feel like all these new names that I keep hearing about, like Future and Epic, right? Like, they're actually bringing up the level of the foreigner Terrans.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm interested to see where those guys are in about a year or 2.
Yeah.
But I feel like we get our hopes up all the time for Terrans. And they're just like, Where's my foreign Terrans at? What's going on?
Nate's been hurt before.
MaSa's like, I'm proof that you can succeed as a foreign Terran and like make some good money. Same with Special.
Yeah.
Then both of them are just grossly inconsistent, and you're like, well, should Special have been knocked out by Cham in the round of 16 of Americas? No, he shouldn't. Should MaSa be knocked out in round of 16 of the Americas? No.
No.
Although, you know, of course, MaSa's still in it. We still have time to see that. But
yeah, I think MaSa also is going to continue to do what he did in that second game. Tank pushes.
There was also a super clench moment in the Europe group where people were like, are there going to be no Terrans in the top 8 for Europe?
Yeah, that would be something. But Hero Marine is our savior.
Yeah.
For that region. Yeah, I'm still kind of upset about that, honestly. Thermal get knocked out first. That was just
brutal.
Not what I expected.
Brutal.
Yeah. But game number 3 is coming up here now for this TvP. See who moves on to the winner's match.
It'll be on New Repugnancy. When you think about Repugnancy, what comes to mind?
I mean, repugnant, right? So just like ugly and stupid.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that's not what they went for.
But what if you broke it down? It's Repugnancy. Right? So what if you got a new pug named Nancy? Repugnancy.
It's a terrible name for a pug. Or any dog.
I don't know.
It's terrible.
Maybe you wanted to name your dog Nancy. I'm just saying. There's a less ugly way to look at the name of the map. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, it's not that pretty of a map. I think we're okay here. It's not gonna get its feelings hurt.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're loaded in the bottom left. We have the Terran player in the blue. He is MaSa. Don't forget to claim your XP, ladies and gentlemen, if you can.
Click it right here. Or right here. I don't know where it is actually.
It would probably be on the right side, I think. On
I
this
thought
channel.
it was, but I wasn't sure.
It'd be there-ish on this channel.
Yeah.
It's channel specific. It's not user set, so.
In the top right, as the red Protoss, it is Firefly. And he sent out 2 probes. 2 probies.
Even though he's not cannon rushing. It's going to be the 1 proxy gate, isn't it? No, that so. Probe, I think the second probe is moving really
Yeah, I feel like the gateway usually goes here.
Yeah, he's not going close enough.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is, I would guess it's a something else proxy.
Well.
If the pylon now, he could put like a Stargate or a Dark Shrine or a Robo there.
You see the gas stolen, and while that sometimes is just Protoss being annoying Protoss, like this should.
Robo, no? I feel like a lot of people gas steal when they go proxy Robo. Especially because they made the robotics facility cheaper. You have a little bit of extra money to play around with when you're getting inside the Terran player's head.
Regardless of what it ends up being, like MaSa should be a little more on guard. Like, okay, is this just cheeky Protoss stuff, or am I going to be worried here? Unfortunately, as I say that,
Robo.
He is getting an SCV out, seeing that there's shenanigans afoot. I thought he was going to stop down that command center, but it was just seconds beforehand he was able to realize, nope, I need to prepare.
So the interesting thing here is, if it's not like a 4-gate, this build is a bit worse than it used to be because the cost of the robotics facility is like immediately made up for with the extra cost of Immortals. Because oftentimes builds like this, you would see like the proxy double Robo, and you're like, yeah, he's going to crank out Immortals and Warp Prism, but because the cost of Immortals went up, it very quickly becomes like unsustainable to do. So I'm curious to see what he does here, because he just won't be able to have as much with this as you usually would, because the Immortal is a more expensive unit now. I think they raised the price of it from $250/100 to $275.
Yeah, it was
$25 per. Adds up when you're only on 1 base.
Right, when it's a super duper cheese. Now, Firefly is not. I mean, he's got to wait for the Immortal to really do anything here. So he's setting up the shield battery, probably plural eventually.
Yeah, he is really committing here.
Oh, this Reaper, though. Oh, wow, he didn't make
made nothing.
Okay.
He's got the Adept, but he's going to lose probes. And, you know, these are the mineral mining probes. And just, I feel like we were just talking about minerals being scarce for some reason. I can't quite put my finger on it, Zombie Grub.
Well, this has already been less than ideal for Firefly, who didn't want to be SCV scouted. If the SCV scout doesn't go down, then Adept takes up the Reaper's time because it tries to defend a natural that's being built, and then it really does snowball from there. But for MaSa to already just go on the high ground, to have the Reaper...
It feels so slow. The Robo is actually not that close. I wish this proxy was a bit closer. Or he went like double Robo and went like insane YOLO mode with it.
Yeah. Regardless of what he decided to do, the SCV Scout already really just messed up his plans. So he's going to have to make something really good happen here. MaSa has certainly been in, in situations like this before. He knows how to defend, and he's not taking it lightly either. 2 bunkers, even though they got a CC.
Yeah. The tank is really the most important thing here, especially since it was an observer and not a prism after the Immortals.
Should be a 4 prism though, and then he finally makes it.
Yeah, but even then, still going to take a while, and it's not as close as it should be. The Reaper has yet to find it. I guess it's like harder to scout because it's so far away, but at the same time, diminishing returns on how much you're trying to hide here.
Yeah.
One is going to figure it out eventually.
Yeah, like it's not like the Reaper's going to take out the pylon, like it would only be bad news if the first 2 Marines scattered or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think that should have been a little bit closer, but this is...
He's got the observer, right? So it's like eventually siege tanks just chip this away to death. Build a Viking.
Oh, it's just over there.
There you go. The observer's not even in like the surveillance mode.
Yeah, I thought it'd be like over here in surveillance mode, but...
It's like I got the depots and then what? That's it? Like, do you teleport the adepts onto the siege tanks so that the 2 bunkers are Marines
yes.
instantly kill them? Okay, the prisms, he's going full YOLO mode here. If he gets the tank without losing the Immortals, okay. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good there. Another tank is done. So he's going to have to pull that same move again. Can he even afford that? He's only got 1 warp gate.
Yeah, look at the warp prism. 6 health.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
It ran into the bunker range, so that's why the Vikings so easily shut it down. That
MaSa does it. Takes the series.
That was super easy 3rd game.
Yeah, I don't know.
The SCV Scout was critical, made it super easy, and MaSa didn't underestimate it.
I mean, I like the idea behind it, but the build was like... It was like trying to do your homework while the teacher's collecting it because you're sitting on the other end of the classroom from where she starts, and you're like, I just need to scribble down a few wrong answers just so it's done.
Yeah.
But it was like, this is so bad. It's like, no, this doesn't count as done. No, you know what I mean? Like, you just... And, man, it's actually a little bit too real. So we're going to move on from that. So that's it for our first match of our Americas Group B. MaSa advances up to the winner's match. Firefly will fall down to the elimination round to see who'll be the first player knocked out. Fret not, though. There's more StarCraft coming up. And what's that? You want more Terran versus Protoss? Well, we've got it for you with a piping hot cup of coffee coming up against Probe next here at the World Championship Series.